Are you tired of sugarcoating how you feel about infertility? The Infertility and Me podcast offers raw and candid discussions about all things infertility and IVF. Join me, Monique, your host, as we get real about the emotional, physical, and mental effects of infertility and what it does to its victims. Hashtag infertility sucks. Please be advised, adult content and language. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me. I am your host, Monique. Today we have Amy, Angel Mama, infertility survivor, and stillbirth survivor. Amy, can you tell us about how long you have been on the journey to parenthood and what that's been like for you and your husband?
Okay, so hello everybody. My infertility journey kind of initially started actually before we really started trying. So I have endometriosis, and I've had it for a while. So for those of you that don't know what that is, you can look it up and get a good description, but I'll do my best. It's just when the cells that are supposed to grow inside of your uterus, they grow on the outside of your uterus, and they can grow in various places, but it often is around your fallopian tubes and your abdomen, and can be in your bowels and your bladder, so just kind of anywhere in that area. And then because those cells can't shed, it just builds and builds and builds on top of itself and kind of creates like a scar tissue type form there. So I've known that I've had that since I was a teenager. I've had what they call suspected endo, because the only way to diagnose it is to get a surgery. And so my husband and I started trying about maybe 6 months before we got married. I think it was in 2015. And we started trying in May, and our wedding was in September. We had a feeling that we might have issues. My gynecologist had told me that we might have difficulty. He said some women with endometriosis have no problems, but oftentimes they do have fertility issues. So that's why we started early. I was 24 at the time, and my husband was also 24 at the time. So went off my birth control that I was on for years, and kind of just went off it and forgot about it. Didn't really track anything or do anything for the first bit. So we did that for 6 months, and then we got married. And then once we got married in September of 2015, I started tracking my cycle a little bit, paying more attention to it, just getting one of the period tracking apps and using that. And so we did that for almost a year. And then after a year, I was still being seen by my gynecologist every 6 months follow-up, and he said, we had a few options. He said I could do the surgery, or if I wanted to, I could try for a little bit more on my own. And so he got me to take ovulation tests for a couple months just to make sure I was ovulating. I got some of the baseline blood work done at that point, just like your estrogen levels and progesterone, like your blood work that you would get on certain days of your cycle. And so we did that. We tried for almost another year and still didn't have success. So I went ahead and got my laparoscopic surgery. And so that was for my diagnostic surgery for my endo. And I did find out that I had stage 4 severe endometriosis. And so my doctor removed all of that. So they burn and cut it all out. And after that, he said the best studies or best practices show that after your surgery, you do medically induced menopause for 3 months, and then it just kind of allows your system to recover properly from the surgery without getting periods, basically. So I did that. It's just an injection once a month for 3 months, and then I had one period, and then I got pregnant my next cycle. So in all, my first pregnancy was about 2.5 years after we officially started trying. And then, let me think. Yeah, so that was, I found out in October of 2017. And then Yeah, everything was great. I was a little nervous. I had many friends that had had miscarriages, so the first 12 weeks I was really nervous. But I got through them, no problems. And so everything was great. We told our family. I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, and I work in healthcare. Told all my patients and all my coworkers, and everybody knew. And then, unfortunately, at my 20-week anatomy scan, we found out that our baby had a bunch of abnormalities, and his they were heart conditions, and he was not compatible with life, so he was not going to live. And then at 21 weeks and I think 5 days, I ended up we ended up losing him, and I had a stillbirth.
Wow, wow.
At that time. So that was January of 2018 that I had my stillbirth. And then from that, my doctor said to go ahead and try naturally when I was ready. But he kind of said when I was ready, but he said sooner rather than later, because with endometriosis, every month that you get a cycle, you get more adhesions, they're called. So you get more tissue that grows, and so the longer you wait, the worse it gets, the more cycles you go through. So we tried right again afterwards, and he had said to try for 6 months, and he felt that if we weren't able to get pregnant in 6 months, then we should pursue IVF, so go see a RE, a reproductive endocrinologist, and pursue IVF. So for those following 6 months, I did everything under the stars that we all do when we're trying to get pregnant, as far as eating everything, pineapple this and pineapple that, and putting your legs up after you do the baby dance, and ovulation trackers, and all the things, really. We've all been through it. Yeah, and nothing worked. So 6 months later, it was actually 8 months later by the time we actually had gotten into our RE, and that would have been September 2018. And we kind of started right away once we went to our consultation. They wanted to do a long protocol, so they wanted me to, my RE wanted me to do the Lupron Depot shot, so go into induced menopause again for 4 months. And that again was to kind of turn my system off and kind of get my endometriosis to relax. It never goes away, but when you're not having cycles, it doesn't flare up as much. So quiet it down, basically. And then we did stims. We did stims and all the good stuff, the every 2-day checks and this, that, and the other. Retrieval. We had 6 mature eggs. 3 of them fertilized, and only one of them made it to a day 5 embryo, so a day 5 blast. So we did a fresh transfer that cycle. That was in January. It actually landed my transfer, my first transfer, fresh transfer from my first cycle, actually landed on my stillborn son's first birthday, which was wild. So we did that transfer. Unfortunately, it was not successful. So we got in fairly quickly for our WTF, or what the fuck appointment. And my doctor was just super surprised. She thought I would have much better results. And so she basically said this time we would jack up the medication for stims and try to get more eggs. So that's what we did. We jumped right into that cycle. I think we did it literally the following month. So we stimmed again. Went through all that, the checkups, the ultrasounds and everything, did a second retrieval, ended up, I think we had started with, I want to say 17 eggs, 13 fertilized, 11 fertilized, and we had 7 make it to day 5 embryos. So we had to do a freeze-all because my estrogen levels were so high. I was at risk for OHSS. And I did have a little bit of mild OHSS, but nothing major, nothing that I had to go in for or anything. So we did a freeze-all, waited, I think it was 2 months, and then geared up for our first frozen transfer, but our second transfer. Did our second transfer. Unfortunately, that was not successful. And then so we jumped right into our third transfer. I think you have to wait 2 months between because you need to have cycles between. Did a third transfer, and unfortunately that was unsuccessful. So I called and requested to meet with the doctor, met with the doctor, and as a lot of times happens when you do this stuff, she didn't really have any concrete answers. She just said, statistically speaking, I should have been pregnant by now. And she just, I had asked her about a few tests, and so we went over a few things. And she thought best thing moving forward would be to do the Lupron injection again, so the induced menopause again for 4 more months before I did another transfer. And again, it was just I hadn't done the Lupron, the induced menopause, for any of the transfers from my second cycle. And so, as anyone knows who does IVF, you do have to have cycles between your cycles that you do your transfers. And so every time, even though I was doing transfers, I was still having periods every month. The transfer cycle, it's a little bit longer than a month, but regardless, I was still having periods. So she figured to do the induced menopause to try to quiet that endo again right before transfer would be the best thing. And she was just going to do an endometriosis scratch too. She said there's some evidence behind that. So that is where I'm at right now. I'm in my second month of my third induced menopause. Yeah, so that brings us, that's kind of the quicker version.
Absolutely. The information you gave is so on point, and there's a lot of new things I learned about endometriosis too that you stated. So I did want to add, infertility has affected your relationship with your husband, positive or negative?
Our loss itself really brought us really close together. To begin with, that was like I would say our first major hurdle as a married couple. And so that kind of definitely tested our marriage. And I do have to say, if you look at the research, like most research says, after stillbirth, that more often times than not, people end up not together. And I think that's for various different reasons, but we were one of the lucky ones, and it actually brought us a lot closer together. And same with infertility. So, we went through our loss, and then we kind of jumped right into this IVF journey that ended up being a lot more than what we thought it was going to be. We never expected to have to do 2 cycles. And yeah, it just has really tested us. And we've been on our infertility journey since we were married, really. So it's been all we know, to be honest, since our marriage. We were together for about 4 years before we got married. So we did have that kind of base, but yeah, we've just really learned how to support each other in going through this journey for such a long period of time now. It's been 4 years, 4.5, almost 5 years actually. So yeah, we were lucky because I know it can go either way. But we prioritized our marriage, and it really has gotten us a lot closer together.
That's awesome, because I can imagine for so many other people it doesn't go that way, and it's just awesome that you guys have been able to connect and stay connected in a
Yeah.
And I think it it really
Is the marriage, for
does,
sure.
and it tests you as a person too. So I wanted to get into, what has the journey taught you so far? Yeah.
It's taught me a lot, really. I find for myself, I've learned to not have expectations because things never almost never go as you want them
Nope.
to or you expect them to.
Yep.
I've learned that every IVF journey and every IVF cycle is different, depending on why you're there, like what put you there, whether it be male factor or endometriosis or PCOS or
Yeah.
unexplained or secondary infertility. It's the how the process is going to work is going to be the same for everyone, but like the intricate details of the process is going to be very different. And so I found that really hard in the beginning because I would try to go off what other people were going through, and it really can be quite different. Even though the process itself is the same, the basics
Mm-hmm.
of it is the same, like stimming, retrieval,
Yeah.
transfers, it's all kind of the same, but kind of how you go through those motions is quite
Mm-hmm.
different for everybody. And I found that really
Absolutely. I
frustrating at the
agree
start
totally.
because you just kind of want to know what to do, and like, you want your clinic to be recommending the same thing as another clinic, halfway around the world for another person, and it just doesn't work that way. So I find I've learned to kind of let go of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it's just not the way it is.
No,
Um,
unfortunately.
I've really learned to kind of advocate for yourself and,
Mm-hmm.
trust for myself, I'm lucky. Like, I feel very fortunate. I full-heartedly trust my team, like my clinic and my reproductive endocrinologist. She's great, and I think that's really helpful. The other thing is here, I'm in Eastern Canada, so we don't have a lot of clinics to pick from where I am.
Mm.
So I know a lot of places, like if you're unhappy with one, you know, place or certain physician, because not everybody meshes with everybody. That's just life, right?
Right.
Some, my doctor might be great for me, but they might not work for somebody else, type of
Yeah,
deal.
absolutely.
We don't really have that option here because we just have one clinic for multiple provinces here. So for me to go anywhere else, I'd have to get on an airplane and fly for, you know, 2 hours and put in a hotel. Like, I
Wow.
can't, there's nowhere within driving distance. Like, the closest driving distance would be 13 hours for the next clinic. So it's, I'm really
Wow.
lucky that I have a good team because I don't know what I would do if I didn't. But I've just learned to trust them, really.
So that's awesome. And I think that you made a really good point about advocating for yourself because it's very difficult as women to share our intimate details about infertility. And I think that it's important that our doctors are like our best friends.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's a really good point that you make. I really like that, advocating for yourself and switching doctors if you have to. Yeah, yeah, you have to do that for yourself and for the sane
Yeah.
your sanity. I mean, going through the process.
Yeah.
So
It's very,
that's a really good point, and I like that. So, what would you say to
hmm.
a couple or a woman who is currently newly diagnosed?
Geez, that's a hard one. Just to uh, just trust your gut, I guess, too. Like, just you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to rush into IVF. It's a long process. Be patient. I know I almost hate saying that because I friggin' hate it when people say that to me because I have no patience. But
But it's the truth. Yeah.
I just almost want to kick myself for saying it. Just to like I said, just not have expectations, because I feel like that's really what uh, it just really knocked me down with my first cycle. Is I had one friend that had gone through IVF, and she just did substantially at like the mother load of embryos. I think she had 13 or 14 day 5 embryos. She did one transfer, two embryos, had twins right away. And that was kind of it. And so that was the only person, and I had not done much research online or anything before I had done it. I didn't have my socials or my YouTube or anything. So I just assumed that it would be that way for me, and it just wasn't that way. And so you just never know what's going to happen. And so I just think if you're new and going into this journey, just, follow your gut and try not to have any expectations, right? Because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And infertility is so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen cycle to cycle, year to year as you get older and as your body
Yeah,
changes. So
yeah.
you got to be open. And so what would you say to the infertility standing face to face if you could? What would you say to infertility?
Yeah, it would probably be something like, fuck you, or I hate you. It would probably be very angry. Yeah, it would probably be
I,
very
I,
fucking
I
angry,
think
man. It's taken a lot of my life away from me, a lot of my
yeah,
friggin' money.
yep. The money is
Yeah,
the first
it's
thing to go,
changed a
you
lot of
know?
my relationships with everybody, and it's just, yeah, I fucking hate infertility.
Yeah, I think we can all attest for that same feeling, and that would be the
Yeah,
number one answer
it's like
probably. If yeah,
hell. It's hell. It really is.
so hopefully we can get you back for an update, and maybe you'll have a little bundle of joy screaming and
The
pulling on
update,
you.
yeah. Frozen transfer coming soon.
Yes, much baby dust to you
I hope
guys.
so.
Well, I'm certainly rooting for you guys. I know it's been a very arduous and long journey, and just much baby dust to you, and good luck.
Oh, thanks, girl.
And thank you again, Amy, for coming on today, being our very first interviewee. And I appreciate you for doing that for me today. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having
Amy.
me. I'm happy
You're
to be
welcome.
here.
Thank you, dear. It means so much to me. Thank you. To follow Amy and her journey for trying to conceive her baby through IVF, you can follow her at AMYS_journey TTC. And if you'd like to connect and continue to heal together, you can follow Infertility and Me on Instagram at infertility and me _. And if you prefer Facebook, you can like our page and connect with me on there as well. And that's Infertility and Me and the number 2. I appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in to our 4th episode with Amy and her trying to conceive journey. I appreciate you guys. Love and light, and let's continue to connect and heal together. Thank you.